Hello, I'm Mike Aronson. I'm a member of the Waverley Singers in Farnham in Surrey, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by Owain Park, who is not only a singer, an organist, and a conductor, but also a composer of renown, and who's written a lovely piece for us to perform at
There it
our
is.
next concert. You probably haven't seen it before, actually, and in that form. But we're performing it at our next concert on the 22nd of June in St Mary's Church in Frensham, and it's a huge pleasure, Owen, for me to be able to talk to you this morning about yourself and about the work.
Morning, Mike. Nice to be here with you. Yeah, it's very exciting to see the score in real, as it were.
Well, we just had it for the first time, hot off the press last Thursday night, and we've started rehearsing it, and it's obviously very exciting. And we'll come back in a minute and talk a bit more about the piece and uh, what sort of inspired it. But why don't we just start? Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you are, as I said, a man of many parts in the musical field. Tell us about your journey. How did you get to being doing all those things that you're doing now?
Well, I think lots of musicians that I know seem to be increasingly doing all sorts of different things rather than just the one. I suppose part of that is that when you're growing up, if you are afforded musical opportunities like I was when I was in Bristol as a singer and then as a keyboard player, you kind of don't want to give any of them up because they all afford you different sort of musical visions and people to work with. And so I was a chorister at St Mary Redcliffe Church in Bristol, which is beautiful building, and we did three services on a Sunday, so instantly exposed to that side of the choral tradition. And then I studied the organ and piano and trumpet at a school in Bristol, and then went to Wells Cathedral School, and that was an amazing place to study for sixth form. I was also organ scholar at the cathedral, and I actually stayed on for another year to do more organ playing, and choir training and writing for the choir as well. Um, and then beyond that, I went to Trinity College, Cambridge, and the choir there is astonishing. And that was under Stephen Layton. And then from then, kind of did a bit more in Cambridge with various choirs and headed to London where I am now and do all sorts here really. London's a very nice base, obviously to get around. You can zip into France on the train and then you've got the whole of Europe to work with. So it's quite exciting really. And I fit in as much as I can around my other sort of hobbies and passions, when time allows.
Well, I was going to ask you whether you had time for anything else, but I'm glad to hear that you do. That's good.
Yeah, well, I think it's important. Otherwise, you can end up a little bit. I don't know. I think all of the other things that you do influence in a positive way on your music making. So that's what I've come to realize.
Oh, go on, just tell us then. Come on, what are the other passions outside music?
Well, I spend quite a lot of time in my garden, which is great. And actually, during the last, we've lived here for the last 3 or 4 years, and before then, we didn't have any outside space. And I think I've really realized the value of having that time just sort of working on something small projects, making it look beautiful, working with the seasons, facing the inevitable disappointments, but actually you're just being outside is really refreshing and calming. So that's what I spend quite a lot of my time doing if I'm not out making music.
Well, that's actually very interesting because, of course, that takes us straight into this piece that you've written for us, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
it's made possible by a generous bequest from Josephine Reeder, who was a long-standing member of the choir, and it's in her parish church that we're going to perform it. But Jo was also a great sort of lover of nature. She was a farmer. She actually gifted her farm to a charity in her will. So it's now run by a sort of community regeneration trust.
Mm.
But I think when we approached you, we were hoping that you'd be able to write something that somehow reflected this connection between music and the natural world.
Yeah.
And it's interesting what you just said about the energy that you get from connecting with nature. So maybe Could I ask you just to say a little bit more about that and how that fed into your thinking about this piece?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to write and also what the choir might want and for the occasion, but also a piece that hopefully would live on because that's I suppose what you're doing when you're creating something new is that it's to use a gardening term, I suppose it's less of an annual and more of a perennial. Well, that's the idea, because otherwise you can create an awful lot of annual material, but actually what what's really exciting, I think, for a commissioner is not only the first performance, but the second, especially if they haven't had to do anything towards it apart from facilitate the initial piece. So I wanted to chime in with a theme that I thought would be suitable for the mood and the occasion, and the fact that, of course, this is written uh, loosely, I suppose, in memory of someone, but certainly with their blessing, and for the choir which they loved. So the the theme is well, the piece is called Five Nocturnes, and so we explore different shades of nighttime. Some of them are the obvious, which are seeing the shadows and the moonlight and the stars in the sky, and others are sort of sat there maybe around the campfire with your friends and just sort of talking about the day that's gone past and what you might have to look forward to in the coming week. So the exciting thing as well was that I had kind of carte blanche to choose the instrumental forces. Well, within reason, because obviously the conductor Richard said, don't go mad with it because we need it to be possible to do again. So I scored it for piano and for cello and for clarinet, which I think is a really interesting combination. They're instruments that I love hearing. I think there's a lot of versatility, of course, with both of those sort of melody instruments, because they can both play, unlike some of their counterparts, rather high and also rather low. And their timbre is different but complementary. And then the piano is there very much as this kind of hypnotic creator, keeping everything ticking along, obviously providing a pitch reference for the choir in places, um, but interacting with the other instruments in a sort of conversational way. So when we first hear the voices and they present the initial ideas of nighttime, you've already heard a little bit of an introduction to the work, which just gives a clue as to what the choir might then say next. And I very much wanted to come full circle so that the first music that you'll hear comes back at the end, a little bit altered, but feels like it's a nice sort of maybe from the setting of the sun to its rising.
That's great. And of course, what we haven't said is that there are five movements, and each one is set to a different poem by a different poet. So Ivor Gurney, Christina Rossetti, Rumi, Margaret
Yep.
Evans, and Kathleen Raine. And the
Yep.
whole piece, you think it's going to last about 18 minutes, which is
Well,
a nice
yeah,
length.
give or take. Yeah, you never know.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. I mean, what's it like? You've obviously written a lot of pieces and seen and heard them perform. What's it like sort of waiting for the first perform? You must have played it for yourself on the piano, I imagine, but
Yeah.
and you must have quite a good sense of how it's going to sound with those other vocal and instrumental forces. But what's it like just waiting for it to kick off?
Well, you can imagine as much as you like, but there is nothing like hearing a new piece for the first time. And what I've always found interesting is that first performance, even when the piece gets done again by different groups, the first performance still lives on in my head, and that's kind of always the sound that I will associate with a particular piece because it's brought together by that sense of anticipation, the occasion, the building it's being performed in, and the people that are there. So I always remember the first performance of any piece, and that's why I'm so excited about it because can't wait to hear it.
Well, I think you'll find, I don't know whether you know the church, whether you've ever been there, but I think you'll find it's a really good place for this particular work, actually. It's very sort of intimate. It's got a very sort of ethereal feel to it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this piece will go down really well in the church. And we
Great.
hope that you'll get a chance to come and give us a bit of coaching along the way at one of our rehearsals.
Yeah. No, I'd love to do that, time permitting, and if not, we'll find another way to make it work.
And that we might also see you on the night, which would be even better.
I'll definitely be there. Yeah, wouldn't miss
Terrific.
it.
Terrific. Well, Owen, thanks ever so much. I mean, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. It's going to be a real pleasure getting to grips with your piece. So I'll just remind everybody, five Nocturnes by Owain Park to be performed by the Waverley Singers on the 22nd of June in Frensham Church. Don't miss it.
Be there or be square.